I have a very special guest on the Full Circle today. He is the program's lead for the charity Tonic Music, a charity who supports mental health for music industry professionals and music fans, and he designs training courses, support groups, and talk workshops. He has a huge passion in mental health for music and is an academic researcher looking into substance use among musicians. A top guy and an absolute honour to have him on the show. His name is Jeordie Shenton. Boom, 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 boom. Hey,
Thank you,
Geordie.
thank you so much for inviting us. Amazing. I love the intro as well. Real honored. That's great.
Pleasure. No, absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. And I'm super excited to hear about your work for, your work for Tonic Music and the work you do for musicians and for music fans. And I guess what I want to do, I want to hear a bit about you and a bit about your role. And what I also want to hear is I know you've spoken to people in the past and speaking in podcasts. I want to hear a fun fact about yourself, whether it's related to Tonic Music or not, that you've never shared with anyone else.
Oh, I've never shared with anyone else. I do a fun. I'm going to start with a fun, the fun fact on myself that I probably have told everyone. Um, so people might laugh because if they've heard me talk about it, they go, "Oh, he always mentions this." Anyway, so I found out randomly one day that my childhood home, that I grew up in the same childhood home as the musician Brian Eno from Roxy Music. Really randomly, this French biographer who's writing a book told me on my doorstep, as I was in my pajamas while writing my PhD. So there we go. That's kind of my claim
Wow.
to fame. A fun fact I've never told anyone.
That you're
Okay,
willing to share, of course.
I have to be really careful, so I have to keep it. I have to keep myself cool and and unique and mysterious. Fun fact. Okay, okay. I'm going to share the fun fact we spoke about just before we started. So that's a good point. I don't think I've ever told anyone, not really publicly. So I am in my early 30s. I didn't have a smartphone until I was in my mid 20s. So about sort of 10 years ago. When everyone else had a smartphone, I still had a flip up sort of Nokia. Um, I couldn't work out. I was still in sort of, back in the 90s, really. So yeah, I discovered very late on in my final year at uni, based on my uni telling me to get a smartphone because they couldn't get hold of me, and I discovered the wonders of having the internet while on the bus. So I guess that's what I don't think I've really ever told anyone that, because it was just one of them things where it's like, oh, just sort of, yeah, join the game. Is that a fun fact? I don't know, but very strange fact. And then you can't, yeah, very, very, very odd. I mean, I would have been the sort of this guy in his 20s still having like the portable CD players. You know what I mean? There you go.
It's a unique fact for sure,
Mm,
because even I'm sure even when you're at school, surely you must have been one of the few that didn't have a smartphone.
I probably was, but I didn't. I don't think I really noticed. I tell you what I did have though. I did have an iPod. So for me, it was all about the music playing. So me, it was all about going on at the time it's iTunes. People bought songs on. So I had the original. I had a really, really basic MP3 player from like Boots. Then I moved on to the kind of, was it the Nano iPod?
No,
And I
yeah.
had like 2 gig. And then I went up into the world where my nan gave me a little gift, and I was able to buy myself one of the iPod classics, like the 160 gigabyte one. I mean, my God. So for me, it was all about the music player rather than the phone. So yeah, I think that's what happened is I pumped the kind of focus into how can I play music and walk around listening to some amazing music, such as Linkin Park with your t-shirts. Yeah, rather than, I don't know, just whatever people do on a mobile phone. Who knows?
That's fair. I didn't get a smartphone till I was pretty late on, not as late as you. I was about 19, and I used to have a phone which wasn't very good, and it was back in the day. I don't even know if people would have even had a phone that had any. They would even know what this is. Infrared, even before
Oh,
Bluetooth.
okay. I know what that is.
So
What
so
Bluetooth is.
So Bluetooth, so this is like the precursor to Bluetooth. So Bluetooth's really
Ah,
fast. And what I had to do is I could only put like 3 or 4 songs on my phone. And I had to put it
wow.
on my laptop, which was one of the few laptops that had this infrared sensor. And you had to touch it. Essentially, like, this is my phone and this is the webcam. It had to be like that. And then you could transfer a song. And one song, which was like a 3-minute song, would be like half an hour to transfer.
Oh, oh no. Oh, no one's putting any of them Genesis 20-minute long songs on there, are they? That's not happening. Oh my goodness.
No, no, I mean, like, nowadays, it's so easy for people to get music through Spotify or any other streaming platform. You know, they don't realize how hard it was back in the day to, buy a CD, put it on your computer, and then get a file. If you wanna get it on your MP3 player or whatever, you had to, transfer it, and yeah, infrared,
Do you
those
know,
were the days.
I still sort of do that though. I still have an external hard drive that's got all my CD uploads, and I'll still for Christmas. So, bless my mum. She's like, "Oh, what albums do you want for Christmas this year?" Right? And I still get my albums, and I'll still sit there and I'll upload them. It's a lot quicker now, but it used to take a long time. And I'll still upload them, and it goes onto think iTunes. And then you put the album cover on, you make sure it's all nice and tidy, and then I'll upload it onto the iPod. I still do that. I still do. There's something for me, I think it's really important to highlight the ownership of CDs or tapes or records. It's really nice for people to have a collection of music rather than just sort of on the smartphone or on the laptop. Do you know what I mean? I think it's a real, yeah, I think it's quite nice to do that. So yeah, I still feel that. I think that's my version of like that vinyl enthusiast. I think for me, I'm a CD and iPod enthusiast. For me, that's kind of sort of my process I need to do.
Nice. I've joined the vinyl hype. I do just like, and it's just the sound quality on the vinyl when you've got the decent speakers as well. It's just incredible. Like, so much better than hearing it on streaming. Although Spotify, I think recently added lossless, so I don't know. Maybe that's something to think about as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's a big question about streaming services, isn't it? As always, big impact on the negative experiences of musicians in particular. So, yeah, lot of challenges we face.
Yeah, there's pros and cons to it both. I think without those sorts of stuff, maybe musicians may not have been like found, if that makes sense. Like,
Well, it's a good point, isn't it? It's a very good point because it's a lot easier to find music now, particularly for like young people. So young people now just love all music, don't they? Different eras, different genres, because it's just, they don't have to commit to buying something. So the risk of listening to the music is like zero, and it's a lot easier. So if you see a great sort of support act, or if you see um, something at a festival, a local act, they're bound to be on these streaming services. I think what we must always do then is follow up, purchase the physical, purchase some merch as well. Like you said, pros and cons. It'd be interesting to see what happens now with AI. I think that's the real big challenge now for the world of music.
definitely, and you're seeing more and more of that. I really hope they crack down on that because yeah, but some people like people can't tell the difference. Some people can't tell the difference between AI and non-AI, and it's a bit
Mm.
concerning to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, for me, and I would say the same for my colleagues. For us, it's that kind of connection to the artist, and that someone's created this, a team of people. People worry about large songwriting teams and production teams. That it's I can understand using AI by a musician in their music, maybe, and I've heard arguments for it. I think that's the next step that people will naturally do. That's probably been happening for a couple of years, to be honest. I think when you get pure AI music, it's a bit worrying, really. But I think there'll always be true music lovers who love the music for the person, the emotion, the culture, the identity, and so they won't ever really go to AI music. I think so. Hopefully, we'll have that, but it's definitely a daunting thing for a lot of artists at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess I want to talk about your role for supporting
Yeah.
artists who may have concerns and may have, these challenges. And I guess you work with musicians for their mental health. And I guess I will talk about that in a lot more detail later. But I guess I just want to hear a bit about your role and what Tonic
Yeah.
Music do.
So my role at Tonic Music is I'm the programs lead. So I've been at Tonic Music now for nearly 5 years. It'll be 5 years on the 1st of March. So my role is to, as part of a team, so we're an amazing team, really great team, to design, manage, and review the mental health programs for people who professionally engage in music. So that's working musicians, singers, producers, DJs, crew and roadies, agents and managers, festival organisers, venue operators. So anyone who earns money from music. regardless how much that is, from say £1 to potentially £1 million. And then the other side, the mental health support for people who recreationally engage in music. So your music fans, your hobbyist musicians. So my role is to kind of sort of work with sort of day-to-day operations and kind of the sort of strategy as part of a team. So it's been an amazing dream job, dream job. I mean, imagine that you provide mental health support to both the sort of producers and consumers of music. Amazing, love it. Um, so fairly small national charity. I say fairly small. We are growing actually. So um, a fascinating job. If I could have written my dream job at school, I think that would have been it. I mean, as you know, so you mentioned earlier about I'm doing a PhD in substance use amongst working musicians, and that's great. I love doing the research, and this research fascinates me. Um, so I kind of pivoted because I originally worked in kind of health and social care, then went and did a degree. Um, Originally a health and social care related degree, but then changed to psychology and sociology. So then was going down the academic route and just randomly met Tonic 5 years ago. Um, 5 years ago, I think now, when I think about it, I've got to try and think of the timing. I feel it was the end of 2020 because I think it was. I'm pretty certain when I met Steph, the founder and CEO of Tonic Music, the original email exchange was in December 2020. I think it was near Christmas. But if you could, like I said, in school, with like that would have been my dream job because it brings together my absolute passion for music, my sort of dedication towards mental health, and kind of my interest around psychology and sociology, health and social care, those aspects. So yeah, I feel very privileged that I kind of had that bit of luck. You know, you always need a bit of you would always need effort and always need sort of like to work towards your goals. But you do need sometimes that sprinkle of luck, and it was just thankfully Steph and my paths crossed. So yeah, what a fascinating 5 years it's been. Amazing.
Incredible. And we'll talk about that later. And I think, yeah, I think I was very fascinated by it. I think what you do, I think what the charity does, supporting musicians, supporting their mental health. I think for me as well as a psychiatrist, but also just a massive music fan, it really resonated to me. So I found it's an absolute pleasure to talk to you. And the full circle songs you've chosen are all related to tonic music, aren't they?
Yeah, I feel like a little bit of the Tonic music story in 5 songs to some extent, and there's circles within circles almost. There's a kinda I feel the first song choice is maybe a bit more of a center point, but it's kinda circles within circles and kinda comes back nicely, so it's really enjoyable to do, and yeah, some real fascinating connections and stories there.
Amazing. So yeah, I'll put a playlist on it as I do for every show. So what I want to do is I want to talk about the first song. What's the first song you've chosen for the full circle?
Yeah, so the first song, which I think is probably the most important song, the one that connects, it makes the real big connection, is the Specials and the song Gangsters. So really important that we choose the Specials, and in particular, the song Gangsters was really important in that choice.
Nice. The Specials, Gangsters, the first song on the full circle. And what makes the Specials really important in tonic music?
So our founding patron at Tonic Music is and was Terry Hall, the songwriter, vocalist of the Specials. Unfortunately, Terry passed away 3 years ago, I think it was now. But he was founding patron from more or less the very start of Tonic Music. Tonic Music was founded in 2012 and originally started as local non-profit, and there was a couple of festivals that Tonic Music ran. So Tonic, and then original title Tonic 2. And Tonic 2, Terry Hall headlined with a DJ set. And from that point forward, Terry became a patron, and we did an amazing amount of work with the Specials. And Terry, we used to go on tour with the Specials, providing our Tonic Music stand, great support, just an amazing support to the charity. Um, Really, really special guy. He also the specials helped fund some of our programs as well when we were doing more music workshop based work. Particularly, we used to have a ska choir. So yeah, very. anytime any sort of musician, anyone is mentioned with Tonic music, the first person that comes to mind is Terry Hall, and not just Terry, the specials. Linville Golding is one of our ambassadors still. We're very close to many of the members and the whole crew of the specials, but Terry being our founding patron is really, really important. And there's a particular reason why Gangsters was picked as well.
Okay. Do you want to share that now or do you want to
Yeah, I
save it?
think so. So this was interesting. When I was, because I kind of did it as picking the artist first before the songs, um, and I had a feeling there was this connection, but I wasn't 100% sure. So the third song I picked, the artist that does that song did a cover of Gangsters, at the time we first met them, so I'll reveal that a little bit later. And also the second song, the artist of the second song, they also do a cover of Gangsters regularly at festivals and gigs, and actually there's a studio version as well. So the second artist, and I'll mention a song in a second I've picked, is the Dub Pistols. So Dub Pistols, um, again, patrons and ambassadors of ours. So Barry Ashworth, front person, is one of our patrons. Shawnee T, one of our ambassadors. So we have a very close connection to Dub Pistols. Again, performed at Tonic 2, so the story also revolved around the same time. What was amazing is Barry, in particular, very much, Cherry Hall was a great influence on him, and then they become good friends as well. So there's that really lovely kind of almost family aspect with all of these connections. So Dub Pistols, and I've chosen. There's obviously the Gangsters cover, but I've chosen the song Cyclone for that, and the reason being is because Barry runs a fundraiser for us called Barry's Flying Circus. So this is where people raise money for Tonic Music by doing a wing walk. So a wing walk is when people stand on top of a plane while it's doing loop the loops and barrel rolls and all of that aspect. And I have no idea why you do that, but and it's great that people do. Obviously raising money for us, but for me, I'd be like, rather have my feet on the ground. Barry does that, so every year he'll do that for us with his friends, and with different fundraisers. And the song Cyclone was used in a promo video that we did for Barry Fire Circus. So it makes you really think about Tonic music when that song's played as well.
Nice. Great song choice. Dub Pistol Cyclone, the second song on the full circle. And I just want to add about the specials. This has a special place in my heart, pardon the pun, because of the two tone, but also they're from Coventry, my hometown. So yeah, so
Coventry's gonna be mentioned quite a lot in this, I realise as well, actually. And this is the thing, Coventry, I love Coventry. I really personally, I first went to Coventry to do some work with Tonic. I love the Two Tone Museum. I love the sort of the H&B Empire venue, and they're really good friends of Tonic as well. And it's an amazing city. So interestingly, because of the Terry Hall connection, Coventry is gonna sort of be really weaved into this discussion. Yeah, amazing city and real good kind of has a special place in our hearts at Tonic Music. Tonic Music was originally found in Portsmouth, um, but also Coventry has a special place as well.
amazing. No, looking forward to hearing about the connections with Coventry moving forward. Right, shall we do some Would You Rather?
Yes, would you rather? I like this.
Okay. Hopefully they're not straightforward and hopefully they're answerable. I asked one recently where they said it was a non-answerable question.
Oh,
So yeah.
controversial. Stuart's inquiry there, isn't it? Like, oh
Yeah.
wow. Oh, non-answerable question.
It,
Oh,
it was it was to a musician and I asked them, would you rather get rid of all your music forever or stop making music? And they
ooh,
just couldn't answer it.
ooh, cool. Wow, that's quite a conundrum, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now I'm intrigued what you're going to ask me.
Probably not at that level because I've learnt my lesson. But
Wow.
okay, here's the first one.
Mm.
Now I know they're linked, but I hope you understand what I mean when I ask this. Would you rather only talk about mental health, so you can only talk about mental health, or only talk about music?
Ooh. I feel like I'm in my work role, and I should say the mental health one. But I would have to pick the only talk about mental health. And I know some people might think I'm lying, but I feel, oh, that is one of these cool questions. That is quite difficult to answer. So I will go for the mental health because I feel it's a real honor to be working in mental health, and I feel my life, as much as it would be very much empty without music, and my whole life revolves around music, but it would feel very unfulfilled without being able to support people's mental health. So I will. The music would have to be sacrificed. Wow. Wow.
That is tough, and that is a yeah. I would struggle to answer that question as well. And I don't know. I feel like you're a better man than I. I genuinely don't know if I can stop me listening to music, talking about music, or I don't know. No, I don't know.
I can't see me working for like a mental health charity, and I'm not knocking charities to do this, but like I don't know, where it's like Tonic pottery or something. I probably would struggle. It'd have to be a bit more general. I hope people do pottery don't sort of complain why I just said that. But I that would it would be very strange working in mental health without the music aspect. But I think um yeah, maybe, yeah, that's kinda, I am sure my colleagues are gonna go, You are not telling the truth with that," but I actually, do you know what? It's as much as it was kind of the, I don't know, picking your favorite, I don't know, say you got twin sisters and you have to pick one that's your favorite, like, oh, how do you decide? I don't, by the way. Yeah, but I feel the mental health, I feel it's important to kind of be more fulfilled in life.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I think that's fair. I think that's a fair way of looking at it. I mean, at the end of the day, the mental health element is my job, so I guess that is the more important part. Whereas the music is my hobby. So it's basically choosing your job, which is your hobby. But in your case, you intertwine both of them in
Yeah.
your job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and very much so, and always have, because both the
Mm.
research side and the kind of the applied side with tonic music, and actually even when I was in school and I was doing sociology coursework, I'd always do it about music and subcultures. I just naturally, everything I ever did kind of had a music element to it, which is really, really interesting. So I would be fulfilled, but I'd probably be really bored because nothing interests me more than music. I've got other interests, but there's something about music that's universal. It's not seasonal, so you don't have to think, oh, there's an off season. It's, you know, accessible now in terms of, we're just talking about streaming services, for example, and just being able to upload CDs. You've got the diversity of music, the different eras and different genres, the different levels as well. Of, you don't, the greatest album in the world doesn't have to be your stadium touring artist. For you, it could be a pub circuit artist or someone playing the grassroots. And for me, that is true. That there's certain albums and songs that I just think are the greatest in the world. But that's my opinion. So there's just something fascinating about music, and you see that within the work of tonic music, that our participants, whether on the professional side or recreational side, it does trigger some really fascinating conversations. Very much so. A lot more than say football, and I like football, but there comes a limit.
Mm. Fair enough. Okay. Would you rather spend all your time being an academic researcher or all your time teaching workshops?
All my time teaching workshops, that's easy. That's actually easy, and people might laugh at that as well because um, I love research. Um, but my goodness, sometimes it can be a bit, not the research aspect. I find academia can be a bit, the industry of academia can be a bit draining. Um, and I think, again, and I've said this to my colleagues, research is amazing. I was always going to research mental health in music, particularly substance use. Still do it. Still massive passion for it. I'm particularly passionate about seeing younger researchers do research than me, and I could never understand why. There was something about the work I did where I want to do the work, but I really want to see some younger researchers um, break ground. And to me, it kind of made sense when I met Tonic, because as soon as I started working at Tonic in kind of the applied role, or a more practice based, although I'm a programs lead, I'm not a mental health practitioner, but kind of doing day to day work, I fell in love with that more than I ever did with academic research, because there's something about being almost on the front line, supporting people, designing programs, being in triage meetings, and then with the workshops that I teach, and they are informed by academic research. So emotional resilience at skills. I do a substance use awareness workshop that's very much informed by research. But there's something amazing about passing on skills around mental health. And my particular favorite thing is when we get asked to do a workshop at a university or a college or a youth project and I'm working with young people. I love it because I learn more doing that than I have ever done in academia. Probably going to get in trouble for saying that from my PhD team. Um, but you learn from the people that are being affected by what's going on. And yeah, you can get those kind of findings from surveys and interviews. But it's amazing. I had this amazing conversation at Lipper where we did a workshop on mental health and music, and the topic of cancel culture come up, and it was a fascinating topic about these young musicians talking about how they have to negotiate cancel culture, particularly when it comes to certain topics where they're not sure whether they should comment, and if they don't comment, do they kind of get seen as bad not commenting. Fascinating topic that I just think just having that 1 hour workshop, I just felt I learned more. I probably learned more than the students did, and I know the students, really valued the workshop, but that was a fascinating conversation. So yeah, probably, yeah, might get a bit in trouble with my PhD team there, but yeah, yes, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Well, do you know what I mean? I also think as well there's a place for in academia to kind of make academia even more accessible than what it is. I think it's still I I think we're very lucky at Tonic Music. We not only am I doing a PhD, we have Dr. Adam Ficek, our psychotherapist, drummer of the Baby Shambles, first person in the UK to do a doctoral thesis on mental health in music. Well, mental health for musicians, we believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. Um, we have Zara from University of Portsmouth. We've got Dr. John Barnes. We've got academics on the team. Dr. Claire Bloxham. So making the connection between sort of practice and academia, we're very lucky in that regard. But I still think there's a massive gap. And in my opinion, I don't think it's the charities that are not approaching. I think it's academia is not sort of going out there and going, here's the findings. A research project is no good. So a research project on mental health in music is fantastic, but if no one in this sort of field can read it, know it exists, and therefore, so can they access it? Do they know it exists? Essentially, if they're not reading it, what's the point? What's the point? So I think there's a lot more work that needs to be done from the academia side to kind of be on the level of what's happening day to day. Because I think what's happening is a lot of academic findings are great, but maybe because they're not so close to everyday practice, that maybe some of the findings are a little bit outdated by the time they're published. Kind of what I feel. Probably gonna get in a lot more trouble as well about that.
Oh dear. But I see where you're coming from. I think the research has to happen to then, like you say, put it in practice. I think for me personally, in psychiatry, we can also go into research and we can, treat people and teach others. And I think I definitely have more of an interest in being, doing the practical element to it rather than the research side. And I think that's just my personal preference. But I've got loads of friends and loads of people in mental health that love the research aspect and find that much more fascinating because I guess they like collecting the data and, as you say, like looking at the findings and looking to see, well, what change can be done with these findings and looking to see what could be done, and then yeah, other people put it to practice or they put it to practice as well. So yeah, so I can definitely see both sides, and I think I'm
I,
on the
I
side of.
I'm a big admirer of my colleague Dr. Adam Ficek, and one of the things I really admire him for is he's released in the last 2 years 3 journal articles, and they're all in an open source journal, so you can access it for free. And it's about the mental health of musicians, and I just think to me that has a lot bigger impact than being in a journal that's great to be in. But if everyday people can't access it, we need to do better. Probably not going to get funding now for my research. Now I'm not replying, but do you know what I mean? So like, that's my kind of it's easy answer to that one. That was.
Fair. I thought it would have been, but never know. Right. This one is, I like to do it with a curveball because I just like to
Ooh,
see what people think based on their feelings and just their
okay.
interests. Would you rather see everything undiscovered in space. So you go to space and see everything that's been undiscovered, or you go to the ocean and see everything undiscovered there.
Is it in the ocean,
Yeah.
like underneath? Can I say neither? Is that because the idea? See, I'm one of these strange people that I don't really like flying, and I probably don't like going underwater. So the idea of going on a submarine or a rocket really worries me. Despite I might have add that I have the Lego Beatles submarine and I have the Lego Pharrell Williams rocket. Doesn't mean I enjoy being on either. So if I could see everything, I'm going to throw my own curveball and say, because I would say neither, you wouldn't get me on the rocket or submarine. I would much rather pick everything undiscovered in the world of music. But that's an obvious answer. If I had to pick one, though, if I really had to pick one, probably the ocean, simply because to get home it would take less time. Because if you go into space, it's going to take a long time. You know, I don't want that thing happening with Interstellar where you go out for so long that your daughter's older than you. I don't think it happens underwater. So yeah, just for the time journey.
Fair. Let's change it then. Let's say you're not actually traveling itself, but someone said to you, right, if you can have a look at everywhere in space,
Yeah,
where you are, and you've got like, I don't know, a camera or something, and you can look underneath, and what would fascinate you more, seeing the things that are unseen in the ocean or seeing the things that are unseen in space?
probably space. I am quite interested in space and time, but I don't know anything about it, so I can't be talking about physics. But I think I'm fascinated to know if there is life beyond our planet. I grew up near Vendlesham Forest, where we had the British Roswell, so probably that's why I'm a bit interested in it. Um, it is quite fascinating, isn't it, to think how big the universe is. So what could there be? I hope it's a bit like Guardians of the Galaxy, and there's all these really cool planets where you've got like they're all listening to like Electric Light Orchestra and stuff. But I don't know if it quite is like that, but it'll be quite cool to see. So yeah, in that regard, I go with space. If I didn't have to go myself, if someone could just show me the pictures, but oh, that's lovely. I won't go myself. But yeah, how how fascinating.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I'm definitely interested to see if there's something in space or if there's like, life forms. I think there has, I mean, it's not, this is not the show for this, but there has to be, just with how massive the universe is, there has to be at least one other life form,
I think the
surely.
question is, it's not whether there's a life form, but do they have their own music? So we're talking, we mentioned about AI music, but what about extraterrestrial music, ET music? Is that a thing? Do you know what I mean? I wonder what it'd be like. Who knows? Do you know what I mean? It could be, yeah, be quite intriguing to know that. Maybe that will happen. Who knows?
That's very interesting. Yeah, I wonder as well. Okay, this is the last one. Little, yeah, semi of a big slash serious one. Would you rather every big major musician publicly talks about their mental health or the mental health scene, or the entire industry, the entire music industry behind the scenes commit to fixing the structural issues?
Okay. Okay. So the first option, I think it'd be really interesting if all sort of major musicians talked about mental health in some aspect, not necessarily their own mental health, because I never think anyone should have to. But then at the same times, we don't want people to again kind of think it's being talked about too much that people then actually forget, and then you kind of have that recurring pattern. The structural problems, that's an interesting one because I don't think all problems can necessarily be fixed at an industry kind of level. I think we have to accept that there's certain pre-existing conditions that mean people who work in music sometimes can experience poor mental health. The industry might exacerbate it, but it's not always certain intrinsic things to do with the industry. I Very interesting point. I would say I'm probably leaning towards the second one in terms of how realistic that could be. And it's not that the music industry, in quotation marks, could solve every single thing, but there's certain practices that it would be good if they can address. So, for example, when artists are released from record labels, that there's some kind of practice or some kind of procedure in place to help them um, make sure that they have the support should they need it, that they're not just dropped and that's it. Also as well to ensure that there's mental health support available, um, that's accessible to people on tour, where we're getting there, but we're not quite there. So I think, making kind of mental health is kind of certain a thing that kind of has to be ticked, but has to be ticked in the right way, not kind of being ticked to just, oh yeah, we're ticked because we just got this person here, but it's done in the right way. I think would be maybe more better, simply because it would be more action based. I think people talking about it is really good, but it tends to be more awareness based. And we don't want people kind of being like, "Oh, we've heard this conversation." And actually, I'm noticing that a little bit with some discussions around mental health and music that people know this discussion now. So what we need to do is rather than keep having the same mental health and music discussion and it focuses on anxiety, depression, we need to start changing the conversation, where and again our CEO Steph Langan is a real advocate for this, is talking about more severe and enduring mental health in music, talking about issues that aren't talked about enough in music around mental health, because the awareness is there, we now need action. And so we need to be able to change that conversation a little bit to give people a different focus. So keep it within the mental health box, but make sure it's not just to kind of the same answer every time, the same outcome. We're starting to move towards that, but we need to do that. We ran a panel at Brighton Music Conference where we actually discussed severe injury and mental health in music. I believe it was the first time that had really been done, certainly in the UK. So yeah, we need to mix it up, and yeah, and there's some interesting things as well about when major artists, for want of a better word, talk about mental health. Um, that they're then not kind of labeled as the artist that only talks about mental health. I think about like Lewis Capaldi, for example, fantastic comeback. But I hope that should he want to kind of move away from talking about mental health for a little while, that he's able to do that, that he's not kind of put in this box. We need to think of mental health as affecting everyone because it does. Not just sort of label artists as, oh yeah, because it feels if we do that, if it was very much, sort of the Amy Winehouse in the media days, where it's kind of like labeling a musician for their poor mental health. So we do need to be careful with that.
That's fair. Yeah. It's an interesting one because, yeah, you're right. Like I think there is a lot more talk, and as you say, sometimes if we talk, if it's too much talk, well, I mean, I know it's tricky. It's like you can't talk about this too much. Some people might say, but it's like, well, sometimes if it is mentioned again and again, sometimes it can then just be not registered, or
Yeah, I think another solution as well is not is with panels, don't always have just a mental health panel, but have a mental health representative on a different panel. So whether that's like record deals, live performing, publishing, um, anything, anything, because anything has an emotional impact. So having a mental health representative on these panels, I think is going to help as well. I think having just a mental health panel is great, but let's sort of bring mental health in a more applied way of these discussions. I think would be really, really intriguing.
yeah, yeah. And I also, again, I don't know if this is people will like this, but I also don't think people should talk about mental health just for the sake of it as well.
Yeah,
Especially if they don't know anything about it, or it could cause more harm than good. Especially if some artists talk, I just speak about mental health, and then they don't. So I think personally, obviously, I don't know much about the big structural issues behind the scene, but I'm sure. I mean, maybe you might know, maybe you don't. But I think that would be the focus, is actually if we're able to sort of make it easier to support people's mental health or musicians' mental health behind the scenes, and at least try and make it easier, even if it doesn't fix the mental health
yeah.
issues directly, even if they can just make things easier for them. I don't know what that would be, whether like the gig times, or the touring schedule, for instance. I don't know, things like that. I don't know, like that might play a
It's
part.
very much one of them puzzles. I don't know what they're called. You know, the puzzles where you've got to move the pieces around, and it's got one blank square, and you've got to kind of move like all the squares about, and it's really difficult getting into kind of traffic jams. with a lot of things, it's, so like gig timings, well, people's recreational time is either a weekday night or the weekend. So we're starting to see a lot more matinee gigs. So that's an example. But you have that, that's tricky. You have kind of, negative feedback. So again, that can be tricky because if you have someone who's doing a critical review of an album, there's a way that they can give sort of negative feedback, but it's always going to be, if you get a two-star album review, it's still going to hurt no matter how that's positioned. Um, you know, when artists are dropped because of low record sales, you can understand, record labels are companies, so you can't say you have to keep artists on, but it's a kind of, the post dropping process is maybe something to look at. So music as a career, it has got these funny caveats that's why we have that preventative approach with the young people we work with about the pitfalls. But at the same time, there are these structural things that do need changing, particularly with younger artists, because when you've got a young artist that's signed at 18, releases album, dropped at 20, it's not good. It's not good. And we know a lot of artists, and beyond that, crew as well, that have died related to their mental health tend to be younger. Not always, but they do. So we know that there's this relationship. So I kind of see it as a cultural change rather than necessarily policy based stuff. There's policy based stuff you can do, but it's a cultural change, about being a lot more kinder and fairer to people. But it's so entwined with capitalism and that kind of business approach, because it is, unfortunately. So that's why we're here. We would love if Tonic Music didn't have to exist, but we do have to exist, and we probably always will have to exist because there's never really gonna be a place where everyone in working music is in good mental health. There's always going to be these new challenges. I mean, thinking of the last couple of years, you've got, um, the closure of live music venues is one. You've got the effects of streaming, so musicians not getting income. You've got the impact of Brexit on touring. Whether you voted Brexit or not, it doesn't matter. It has had an effect on touring, both artists coming to the UK and artists leaving the UK to tour. And then you've also got as well the new big one that tends to be AI. So you've got all these unique issues that are happening that you don't see with other industries. Like, there isn't really, correct me if I'm wrong, I'll ask my best friend who's an electrician. There's no kind of thing where electricians aren't making money, where electricians aren't getting the social recognition as being an electrician, where they're receiving negative feedback. I mean, I might get a poor Google review, but there's still always work. Whereas being a musician in particular, it just comes with the nature of working in the arts. So culturally, we need to change that. The other thing that needs to change well is kind of the levels of abuse within music. That's one of the things that absolutely structurally needs a change across the board. Um, that's going to be a big impact. You start working towards that, this sort of rate of poor mental health will reduce, not fully to the bottom, but it will start to reduce.
Yeah. No, you summed it up really well, really, really well. And I think that is, yeah, there's a lot of things there that needs to be addressed and thought about. And I really hope in the years to come, it can be looked into, it can be addressed and fixed to an extent. I don't think some of
Mm,
these will be. I think unfortunately streaming services are probably here to stay, and they probably,
yeah.
but the AI is the big one I think for
It's the
sure.
big tidal wave. I kind of explain it as like you kind of, it's almost like you're playing like a fighting game on the old PS1. So I don't know, Street Fighter or Tekken, whatever you like, and you just you go up each level, so each new opponent's harder, and it's almost like, all right, we've just beat the big boss, and then suddenly there's a kind of secret final boss, and it's AI, where suddenly it's like this boss is like 10 times harder to beat, and it's like, oh no, and it is kind of what that must feel like for musicians that, venues were closing down, but there was a lot of work, particularly in Music Venue Trust, in helping venues streaming. There was a big streaming campaign, you know, kind of navigating that, still not quite perfectly, the touring aspect. And then AI comes along and really just causes like, if theoretically, where's the endpoint with that? So hopefully that's something that can be legislated, you would hope.
Yeah, fingers crossed. All right, thank you so much for answering those Would You Rather questions. They weren't too bad.
First one was really that was really tricky. That was a good one. That really did make me think. I enjoyed that.
Okay, how does Dub Pistol's Cyclone link to the third song on the Full Circle?
Yeah, so interestingly, it's a slight cheat code one, this one. So, as mentioned, Terry Hall, founding patron, did years of work with us. Barry Ashworth, in particular, as well, patron with Dub Pistols. Obviously, ambassadors as well, Limber Golding specials, Shawnee T from Dub Pistols. So, original supporters of Tonic music. Slightly cheating because it's the artist that connects here slightly, as opposed, and it's more of a connection to the first song. So as we become a national charity, so now you talk about 2021, it's around the time I joined as well. COVID pandemic, the lockdown lifted. So the first major music event we did was the Coventry Home Sessions, a City of Culture year for Coventry, wasn't it? So Terry Hall um, hosted or programmed a series of music events in the cathedral, and he invited Tonic Music to come along to provide mental health lounge, where we were raising awareness of our work. It was my first event with Tonic Music, so it's very memorable for me. Um, Terry played a solo set. One of the artists that was playing that weekend was the Libertines. Now the Libertines, I think they closed the weekend if I remember rightly. So the Libertines at that set also played Gangsters with Terry Hall coming to join them to perform that. So it's interesting again. Dub Pistols play Gangsters quite a lot. The Libertines play Gangsters, which was amazing. Um, and that's when we met the Libertines. And since that point forward, the Libertines themselves have been enormous supporters of Tonic Music. So for the past 4 years, they've asked us to come on tour with them, provide a Tonic Music stand. They even did a fundraising gig for us in Liverpool as well. So the song I picked, again, because I could go, oh yeah, Libertines and the cover of Gangsters I did, but I will pick the song "Don't Look Back into the Sun." The reason, and that was hard because "Time for Heroes." There's a few different options, but the reason being is, for me, this is kind of my choice now. I They tend to not finish sets. They tend to be the penultimate song in a lot of their sets, whereas the last song seemed to change. So it just makes you think about kind of that sort of closing, and it really makes you think back to the Coventry Home Sessions, hearing that song, and again that kind of it is a circle, but it's more of a, there's a bit like a family tree. So you have Terry Hall, and then you have Barry Ashworth, and then another offshoot was Peter Doherty and the Libertines. So you kind of got these artists that are very much influenced by Terry Hall. And it was Terry that introduced us to the Libertines as well. So you kind of got to, technically the second song doesn't necessarily link to the third song, but I would say, they got the connection with playing Gangsters, which is interesting that they chose the same song. That's what I found really interesting because I had to think back. I actually tell you, I looked at setlist.com or whatever it's called. I had to check. I had to check because I was like, I'm sure it's Gangsters Libertines did. And I was like, I know Dubs have done at least one or maybe more special songs. And again, Gangsters come up. And I was like, that's really fascinating. So it's yeah, nice good connection there.
Nice. The Libertines, Don't Look Back into the Sun, the third song on the Full Circle. Yeah, really solid song choice. Right, I want to hear about some favorites. So, what's your favorite part working for Tonic Music?
Ooh, favorite part working for Tonic Music. I think if I had to choose one thing to do, um, it's doing the workshops for young people. So, like I said, universities, colleges, youth projects. As I mentioned, you learn so much. There's something really amazing about it, and the passion of these particularly young. They tend to be musicians. These young musicians, talking about music and the fascinating topics. I do really enjoy that. And we got to do this year at the University of Huddersfield. So with another um, musician who's a great friend of Tonic. So Loz from Ride. We got to do also at the Royal Northern College of Music, the very first Tonic music lectures. So these were actually part of the modules, the music modules that these students were doing, and it was a mental health in music lecture, and that was amazing. I know other universities are already doing work around this. I am aware of that, but it was a great honour to me to do that. That was really amazing, and kind of have it as a kind of connecting the academic research with the practice. That was really really cool. I very much enjoyed that. Yeah.
Nice. Sounds great. And from a personal favorite of yours, what's your favorite gig that you've been to?
Ooh, favorite gig. Oh yeah, so there's always one that comes straight to mind. I actually went with my mum because actually my friend pulled out, and so me and my mum went. And it was really funny. I'm a massive 21 Pilots fan. I
Nice.
love 21 Pilots, and actually this gig was so amazing. I've kind of made a choice that I'll never go and see him again, which is really strange. So it was I think it was the Bandito tour. So it's about 2019 at Wembley Arena. It was such a funny gig because my mum was really into like modern music, and I was like, oh, my friends pulled out, did want to come, and she wore like a yellow scarf and a yellow. There was something else weird. She wore yellow. Anyway, and that was the theme for 21 Pilots on that album was yellow. But my mum didn't know, so she really fitted in. Really strange. And it was just from start to finish, that show was just like they'd been one of my favorite bands for a long time, and just seeing that and the production just phenomenal. For me, that would always be the gig that's gonna be extremely difficult to top. And I've seen some absolute phenomenal gigs. I don't feel I've ever really been to a bad gig. I'm very privileged. But for me, that is always the one where it's like I always kind of think, ah, will it ever top? Will it ever top? And I don't think anything necessarily have. It was just the right, everything was just right. Everything connected very well. Um, so yeah, I think that's a good shout out. I'm trying to think as well, like if there was any others that were. I mean, I think as well. I feel because I'm saying that was an arena show, so obviously it's a big budget. I think it's important to kind of highlight smaller budget shows. So I'm gonna use just one more example. It was actually a festival set, and it was this year at Brighton the Corners in Ipswich, multi-venue, and it was a band from Colchester called, Monster Florence. Nearly forgot the name there. My goodness me. My goodness me, and again, I've been a fan of theirs for a long time. Just when you see a band and they're from down the road from where I live, um, stunning, start to finish. And they played Brighton, of course. They also did Latitude Festival and watched that again, stunning, start to finish. Just like, wow, brilliant. And that to me, that shows you don't need 21 Pilots had millions and millions of pounds to do with the lights and sounds and everything. Phenomenal. But you can play without the kind of millions of pounds put in, and it can be absolutely great. And also just another mention as well, there's a folk artist from an area called Ellie Tree. Um, and she performed at a conference I attended with Tonic. It was like the East Anglian Festival Network conference. So I didn't even know they had performances. And I watched her play her folk songs. My goodness me, bearing in mind it was a conference, so it wasn't like the base sort of artist performing friendly environment because it was a conference with exhibition sales. But again, I was so amazed that I asked if I could buy her albums and she had them for sale. Again, so it's really amazing to see these pockets of music in these amazing places and just yeah, brilliant.
Nice, all great choices. I absolutely love 21 Pilots as well. I loved them for a very long time, but didn't see them live until literally last year. Saw them at the Electric Ballroom. They did an intimate show at the Electric Ballroom, which was in London, which was incredible. And then we saw them at the O2 Arena this year, and they were epic. We have got tickets for All Points East next year for
Have
them
you?
because we just love them. We just think they're so good live. I mean, yeah, their show, like you described, it's just an absolute spectacle. But I
If it
also
was
just
there's the one when they come up, so Tyler come up in the car that was on fire, and you're just like, "Oh, this is gonna be amazing." You just know from this point, it's gonna be phenomenal. Um, you're gonna enjoy your points east. It gets dusty there, but it's gonna be really that'll be good.
that's what I've heard. I've never been to All Points East.
I went this year to see, the Maccabees, another one of my favorite bands, love them, and I won tickets to see Haim.
Oh,
A couple of years
wow.
ago, which again, phenomenal. Did get a bit dusty this year, but an amazing event because you got two big stages and you just walk across. and that's quite nice. I think they're gonna really I'm very tempted to get tickets for that show. I think it's actually when I'm working, so probably won't be able to go anyway, but again, it's like, what do you do when you see a band? There's a few bands this has happened to me too, though. Ghost was another one where I saw Ghost, and it was like, it was such a, well, technically I saw them twice because I had asthma attack in the first one, but when I saw them properly, full properly, a few days later, it's one of them, it was like, oh, I just don't know. I just don't know. It's this weird kind of like, oh, I think that's when you hit like the absolute peak. It's like, well, I don't know if I could top their performance. That was amazing. So yeah. Do you feel you're into 21 I feel I'm asking you a question now. Do you feel you're into 21 Pilots because being a Linkin Park fan? Like a natural kinda connection? Yeah.
I
They've
think there is.
they're like the offspring of Linkin Park, innit? Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like their children almost. What about I feel they're very underrated as well, 21 Pilots, because I feel they're kinda seen as a bit maybe for like again, my mum loved them, but I think some people might see them as a bit too poppy.
Yeah.
But I sometimes feel like that with Imagine Dragons, and some people really don't like Imagine Dragons. I love Imagine Dragons. I think they're great. But Twenty One Pilots, I think people some of them missed the point with them. Um, it's they're never going to headline download, but I kind of feel they are part of that family tree. It's a
Yeah.
strange thing. I mean, at least they did Reading, headline Reading, good for them. But yeah, All Points East, that's going to be a really, really good show. That's going to be really, really good.
Speaking of that, I just want to. This is completely off topic, but obviously we're recording this today, where they announced the Reading and Leeds lineup. What do you reckon about that?
Well, first of all, I'm really pleased there's a gender balance in headliners. Um, I think that's really cool. It's I'm gonna focus on the six headliners. I bet I forget which one one of them. So let's start. Charlie XCX absolutely deserves their flowers without a doubt. Amazing to headline. Um, that's great. Do you know what I mean? But personally, I think she should be headlining Glastonbury. To be honest, I think she should have headlined
I
Glastonbury.
mean, she essentially did because they didn't
Yeah,
show the broadcast for
Neil Young wasn't it?
Neil Young. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, for
because
Neil Young.
I was watching. I went to the Iron Maiden gig that night. I think that was the night of Iron Maiden. So I missed that day, but yeah. So I kind of yeah, good for her. Ray, likewise, again, phenomenal artist. What a story! What a story for both of them actually. Charlie XCX, has gone through a lot of albums to get to that position. Ray had to, difficulties with record label, go independent, etc. Phenomenal. Chase and Status absolutely deserve it. To be honest, um, I don't mean this in a bad way. I feel like they're the kind of veterans on this lineup, which is really strange because they're my era. But again, really amazing to see that they are big when I was young, say 10, 10, 12 years ago. Um, and then kind of had a bit of a renaissance a couple of years ago, didn't they?
Yes.
And I loved it. And actually, it's really weird. I was thinking the other day, they really deserve to headline like a Reading festival. Love to see it. Florence Machine, phenomenal. Little envious because I'd have loved her to headline Latitude, which is my local festival. I thought that might happen. It didn't. Um, Phenomenal artist. Surprised she's never headlined Reading. I don't mean she has. Headline Glastonbury, though, of course. Feel she should headline it again in terms of actually because she was a replacement for Foo Fighters, which she absolutely earned. Be really good if she was booked to actually headline as right. You're booked in. Dave, again, another one that should headline um, Glastonbury. Phenomenal, phenomenal artist. And it's not like, oh yeah, phenomenal UK rap artist or whatever. Phenomenal artist. Not just phenomenal musician, phenomenal artist. We're very lucky in the UK to have Dave. And finally, Fontaine DC, who when you think about Fontaine's DC, there's always this argument, oh, when was the last great sort of, well, British or Irish band, but when was the last great band? When are we out, Arctic Monkeys, was there anything after Arctic Monkeys? You have these conversations and, sometimes culturally it's like, who is the kind of figurehead band? To me, that's Fontaine's DC. Just phenomenal, their last album.
Yeah.
And actually, it's interesting because when they did the first album, it's not like they were touted as being, you know, they were like, "Oh, really good," but there were other artists being touted as being the next big thing. I kind of feel they've been a bit of the underdog, really. And again, you know, was it Finsbury Park that they played?
Yeah.
I mean, phenomenal. I've seen video footage of that, and it's like, what what an absolutely superb band. Ireland, I don't know what's in the water in Ireland at the moment. Some of the artists, you know, CMAP, for example, amazing. And so I'm really pleased to see that. It feels quite modern and fresh as well. So like I say, Chasing Status and headliner wise, are the veterans there. That's really interesting. And I think all are they apart from Dave's headlined, I I don't think the rest have headlined before. Um, you know, Florence, again, slightly more on the veteran side now, maybe, but yeah. Is that your kind of thoughts? What's your kind of sort of thoughts? It changes, isn't it? It's changing to what it used to be.
I think, yeah, I think, they all deserve to be on that headline slot for Reading and Leeds, and I think they fit the bill. I think on a personal music front, I think the thing that is lacking, especially compared to last year, was maybe just a bit more of the heavier rock slash metal stuff. Like last year, that Bring Me the Horizon headlining, which and like I just feel like that's missing. I mean, but at the end of the day, they're not catering to people of me. They're catering to people who are post A levels or at that age, and I guess those are the sort of artists that they're most likely gonna be listening to and going, I guess.
Yeah, interesting. I had a conversation with a good friend of mine that's a music journalist, particularly in the rock and metal world. And they mentioned this. They said it's quite interesting. They don't have a kind of rock metal headliner. Um, I don't know if Sleep Token were available. Maybe they're not playing. I think Sleep Token would have been maybe could have been. Are they mainstream enough? I suppose they are now because they did get in the charts, didn't they?
Yeah, they got a
Actually,
top 10 in the
yeah.
in the singles charts.
It's. I mean, I love Sleep Token. I love the whole story of Sleep Token. I just think you know. Obviously, Bring Me did it last year. In terms of, could it have been Youngblood? But I think Youngblood does his own festival and maybe doesn't really do that. So fair play. Linkin Park obviously got booked download, as did Limp Bizkit. So
Yeah.
that's a download one.
I wondered
Um,
Foo Fighters. I wondered if
yes,
they
that
could
was
have.
mentioned, wasn't it? Yes, yes. I think Foo Fighters would have been top. Yes, that's a very good point about Foo Fighters. I think it was rumored, wasn't it? I think that was quite. I think what's happening though, it must be really difficult because you're starting this. So there must be a term for this, but the kind of Londonization of the summer season. So there used to be very few kind of stadium or park shows once upon a time, particularly in London. Now you've got what, five parks? So what you've got Finsbury, I can't even name the parks, High Park, wherever All Points East is at Victoria Park. You've then got all the stadiums. So you've got Wembley, you've got Emirates, you've got Tottenham Hotspur, the Olympic Stadium. I think Twickenham must still do shows. All these stadiums. So they're all doing these massive summer shows. So naturally, it's going to be much harder for festivals to kind of book certain artists to. I guess it's a bit like the Taylor Swift effect. Glastonbury got Taylor Swift, but then haven't really been able to get her back because Taylor Swift's been doing these mega tours. So, and I think you're starting to see that a lot in kind of the rock and metal world. I mean, look at Deftones. Deftones doing these massive outdoor shows, and you go, that really like confuses me. I go on this. I was a massive new metal fan. I love it, but at the same time, there's a part of me that's a bit like when I was in school, new metal was like not cool. Like you were seen as like really weird if you like new metal. Um, and then you see like Deftones doing these outdoor shows is the best thing in the world to see because it's like how has that kind of happened? I mean, amazing. So maybe Deftones could have headlined Reading. I feel like I'd have never said that 2 3 years ago, but I feel they could now. That's interesting. That's interesting. Um, maybe it's also indicative on you know we need some. Maybe there's not enough rock and metal. But again, I feel like if I'm saying it, I feel like I shouldn't be saying that. But I don't know. There's maybe there needs to be more. particularly from UK. I think America, or at least North America, Turnstile are going to be booked as headliners. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens with UK. 'Cause Sleep Token kind of are the big ones. President, maybe President could. Who
They
knows?
don't have enough songs to headline just yet, I don't think.
I always thought Bullet for My Valentine would end up headlining things. I don't know. For me, they're like massive. I think the question is, so with Reading Festival, there's 6 headliners. Used to be 3, didn't it? Obviously,
Yeah.
Reading kind of. I don't think they split stages now. I don't ever do that. Maybe they do.
No, they don't.
Um, can you ever have 6 headliners where you've covered every area or major area of music? I don't know. I don't know.
That's true. That's true. I mean, last year it was weird because last year they didn't have 2 headliners every night. I mean, that's an interesting one that they've chosen to do it every night, have 2 headliners, because last year I think Bring the Horizon was the only headliner for their night, and I think Travis Scott was the only headliner for his
Yeah,
night.
they had 4, didn't they? Because there's Hayes
Yeah,
and Chapel Roan
yeah. But
as the
that's a bit
4.
more, yeah, and I guess that's that yeah, and I guess that is similar to this year's, except there's just no metal act, I guess?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It I think being a festival booker is a thankless task. I really, again, I'm putting my hat on about mental health support for the world, for people working in music. You see time and time again, festival announcers line up and people go, "Ah, this is a rubbish lineup. Ah, I'm not buying tickets. I'm gonna sell my ticket, blah, 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 blah." It's there's only so many acts available. You have a budget. You then kinda have to make sure you kinda cater for different genres and know your audience type. Thankless task. So very yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of empathy I have there because it's kinda there's always gonna be someone who's not happy with a certain booking. Um, but I do tip my hat off to Reading for the gender balance on the headliners. I think that's good to see.
Definitely. Nice. No, fair. All right, let's link The Libertines, Don't Look Back into the Sun. How does that link to the 4th song on the Full Circle?
So we've got a much more of a natural link now rather than the kinda crowbar one a little bit that I did before. So, The Libertines, one of the vocalist songwriters is Peter Doherty, and he's also in the band Baby Shambles. So, um, but the other connection with Tonic Music, Baby Shambles, is not just there, but actually originally and still, so the longer connection is Baby Shambles drummer, as I mentioned earlier, is Dr. Adam Fychek, who is our lead psychotherapist on the team, done a doctoral thesis on mental health and music. So he's been a major part of our work over the past 5 years, particularly the work within people working in music. So from day one, Adam has been involved there and also runs some of our album clubs for music fans as well. So, and I've chosen the song Dandy Hooligan. So that's their latest song. The reason I chose that is because as we speak, Baby Shambles are on tour. They've invited us on tour, so we've been providing a Tonic music stand at all of their shows, and obviously with them that being their new song, they're very much playing that song as part of their set list, and it feels very, a lot more up to date in terms of kind of I feel we're moving forward because a bit of a timeline here, isn't it? Specials, Dub Pistols, Libertines, Baby Shambles, obviously, it's the first time they've toured while Adam's worked at Tonic as well. So that's quite nice that it comes there. Um, so yeah, really, really feels quite present that. It's a really great song as well. And I think being a colleague of Adam's, I'm going, well, I should be going to the London show, which I think is next week when the London shows at Coco. So it'd be really an honor to see Adam play because I don't think I've seen Adam play. I mean, I have. I've seen Adam play acoustic sets. But I've never seen him play with Baby Shambles, so that'd be really nice as well. And I know a couple of my other colleagues have gone down to see him as well. Um, Phenomenal bands, really good reaction to them doing a tour as well. I think that's been quite nice. Um, so yeah, Dandy Hooligan, which I think is a cracking song, links quite nicely with the Libertines. Again, all these sort of connections that we got these close friends of Tonic that are phenomenal musicians.
Nice. Great stuff. Baby Shambles, Dandy Hooligan, the fourth song on the full circle. And that moves us on to very nicely about talking a bit about more about Tonic music and just having a chat about it all because it really does fascinate me. I think what you guys do is exceptional. And I yeah,
Thank you.
you said it started in 2012.
2012, yes.
Wow, it's 13 years now.
Yeah. I think in the June, I think we never really know our birthdays. So started as a local non-profit, main emphasis on recovery through music. So using music to help with mental health recovery. Become a registered charity in 2019. 2021, we become a national charity. Intentionally, but because of COVID, we moved our support to online video call format. And actually, you suddenly you like can support more people rather than kind of doing in-person stuff. The aim of Tonic Music is to establish good mental health within music communities. So by that we mean people who professionally engage in music, so i.e. working musicians, crew, agents, managers, festival venue staff, and those who recreationally engage in music, so be it music fans, hobbyist musicians. We believe we're the only mental health charity that provides tailored mental health support to both. Usually with charities are kind of one or the other, but we feel you can't have one without the other. So that's why we do that. So with the music industry side, for want of a better word, we provide therapy sessions, peer groups, skills workshops, training courses, which we do on the music fan side, but these are focused around things like music performance anxiety, neurodiversity in music. So just the specific issues around working in music. Um, all of the facilitators are mental health practitioners from the world of music. So Adam Frycheck, Claire Bloxham, who I mentioned, Jade Hughes, people who continue to work in music now. I mean, with Adam, he's on tour right now, as I mentioned. With the music fan program, that's quite an interesting one because how do you build mental health support for music fans? Well, there is a lack of support for music fans. There's music therapy, and there's music workshops, but there isn't really mental health support for if you're a music fan. So we do workshops like gig anxiety workshops, festival survival workshops, music for mental health workshops. And then, as I mentioned, we do mental health album clubs. So it's kind of using music, particularly music listening, as the tool, and also addressing the barriers that people encounter to accessing music due to their mental health. So, like reducing down anxieties where we can. So, alongside that, we have resources. We provide Tonic music lounges at gigs and festivals across the UK, both backstage and front of house. We provide Need a Tonic posters to music venues across the UK for free. So I'm very proud of what we do, and it's an amazing that the founder of Tonic Music is still the CEO. I think that's the strength. It's just been able to build a real community within the team, with the patrons, ambassadors, with participants, and just people that we've supported over the years and see at events. So it's an amazing work, and the key point is that the services are free at the point of access.
No, that's yeah, truly incredible. And what a journey it's been. And it's you mentioned festivals all around the country supporting whether it's in person or online and how if someone did want to access your services, how would they do that?
So on our webpage, we've got tonicmusic.co.uk. You will see where it kind of splits into professional engagement music, recreational engagement music, and so they're technically two separate programs. And then you can click register. It goes to a registration form, and everyone who registers is offered a one-to-one consultation appointment beforehand. So it's kind of a check-in, sort of to check how what sort of services would suit the participant. It gives you someone sort of an hour to have that discussion, and there's no discharge time, so people can access the therapy sessions, the peer groups, skills workshop, training courses as and when they like, which are particularly useful for people working in music because obviously they're on tour, they have studio time, so it's not always so easy to be so kind of routine. You also find us on our socials, so Tonic Music MH. So on all the socials, so Facebook, Instagram, Threads, LinkedIn, think TikTok now as well, which is quite nice. And also as well, there's the option on the website to email us and contact us as well. So really accessible. Like I say, we got loads of gigs and festivals across the year. So on tour, the Baby Shambles right now. We do a lot of gigs at different venues and work with different promoters. We also sell merch to help raise money for the charity as well. We regularly do Victorious Festival, so that's our main festival that we do, being originally from Portsmouth. For the rock and metal fans out there as well, we do Takedown Festival, which is based in Portsmouth, so we also do that. Um, so we've done that for the last sort of few years as well, and that's interesting with Takedown because they had Sleep Token headline 2, 3 years ago, and it's amazing that they went from that to Download Festival headline. It was like, wow, that was really they called that well. So the people of Takedown, we are Divergent, a good friend of ours. So yeah, so people are starting to know us a bit more now, which is great. It's like that community feel of a local charity, but at a national scale.
Yeah. And if there was, I know obviously it's not a one size fits all for mental health for people, but if there was one thing or one thing that you would say to someone to help with their mental health, what would that one thing be, do you think?
I don't want to be cliche, so I think the main thing is to reach out, and that sounds a little bit cliche, but I think it's that kind of always go to your GP. So if you're experiencing a bit of poor mental health, first call GP. You're never wasting anyone's time because it could be a case of medication, therapy, it could be a case of diagnosis needed, it could be more of a kind of like social prescribing, etc., etc. That's always the first port of call. I think beyond that, if it's a case of it doesn't require further NHS support, for anyone involved in music is always to reach out to us. That's why we're here. We don't the only eligibility criteria that we have is that you either work in music or a music fan. So theoretically, that could be everyone. It's going to be 99% of the people in the UK, isn't it? So that's first criteria. For the music industry side, there's no economic based criteria. So we don't say you have to earn so much money from music. So you could earn £1 a year from music. Theoretically, we're still there. And the only criteria we have is that you are 18 years or over, you reside in the UK, and that you registered with a GP. That's quite important, that final bit. Other than that, the program is there to be used. That's why we're here. That's why we're fortunate that we have a few grants support our programs. That's what it's for. So you're never wasting anyone's time. You sometimes hear people say, "Oh, I don't want to take someone else's space." You never take someone else's space. We are here for music communities.
Nice. So if you are feeling like you need support for your mental health, as mentioned, if initially seek that support for the GP, but also Tonic Music is available. It's a great charity, very supportive. I really would recommend it. Tonicmusic.co.uk to get full details of that. Was there
Yeah.
anything else about Tonic Music that you think is important that we should touch on?
Yeah, I think it's all important, isn't it? So I think the amazing thing is, like I said, from therapy sessions or training courses, the mental health support is for everyone. So whether you need the remedial support or the more preventative support, or just what I learned skills to support others, it's there for everyone along the spectrum of mental health. So good mental health, poor mental health, that's the key aspect there. So we're really proud of that aspect. And just to sort of check us out because there's all different ways people get involved. Fundraisers, if people want to do fundraisers for us, if people want to volunteer with us at events that we do, there's all sorts of ways. So if you're passionate about music, Tonic Music is a place for you because there's all different routes in. I think that's the real key aspect there. Um, yeah, really good work. And on just final note, on the music industry side of things, we have two specialist projects. So we have Futures, which is for 18 to 25-year-olds who work or study in music. And we have Agents and Managers, which unsurprisingly, based on the title, is for music agents and music managers, specialist mental health support there. Yeah, so we're really branching out into more specialist support. We're doing training courses for music venue staff coming up, so free mental health first aid, suicide first aid light, and also for the youth project staff, so people who work at music-based youth projects, we're also offering free mental health first aid and suicide first aid light training as well.
Incredible, and I'm looking forward to seeing the journey and seeing the progression of Tonic music and the support for all and music fans and musicians and everyone involved in the music industry. So yeah, so thank you so much for that and for just helping so many people who are fans of music or part of the music industry.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much. Let's finish the full circle then. So how does Baby Shambles, Dandy Hooligan link to the last song on the full circle?
Yes. Again, we're kind of linking it more to the artist, kind of cheating. So the last artist I picked is the Dirt Road Band. So the Dirt Road Band is has Horace Panther from the Specials in the Dirt Road Band, along with Steve and Ted, great supporters of Tonic. Um, the way it connects is a loose connection. Is Adam also does a radio show where he interviews musicians for us. He interviewed Horace, so that's my connection there. But the important thing as well is that it then connects back to the specials with Horace. The song I've picked is "Been So Long," but actually, I would encourage people take a listen to the full album "Righteous," which is fantastic, really fantastic album. Certainly on the blues side of things. And again, Horace is continuing that legacy of Terry by we regularly do tonic music stands at Dirt Road Band shows. Really has taken on kind of the a lot of the work that Terry did. So it's been really great there. And really nice to just kind of have that sort of a bit of variance in this circle. So it started with kind of two tone, kind of moving to dub, then kind of indie rock, and then kind of going back a bit with sort of blues. I feel like that's quite a nice circle as well. Um, really a phenomenal band, great. Not say great support. And also what's wonderful is that a lot of Dirt Road Band shows, a lot of special fans go that. One of the amazing things with the specials is their fans really did love the specials so much. Really, some diehard fans, really knowledgeable fans, really passionate, and you still get that with Dirt Road Band as well. So that's great. I love that we've been able to mention a band. Dirt Road Band play on the more sort of grassroots circuit. So we've done gigs with them at social clubs and kind of more like blues clubs sort of thing, and that's amazing because these are kind of music community hubs that we forget about. And I love that Horace mentions that at gigs. He was like, these are the spaces that are important because they're often forgotten about. They're kind of, I think I was in an organisation using the term sort of seed venues, and they are. They're kind of seed venues. Um, you know, if you think about music venue, you wouldn't necessarily write down a social club, but actually these are some amazing music spaces. Um, so yeah, it was. I picked that. Also, special mention. I'm going to make sort of two special mentions as well. That options that could have gone in the circle. First one is the band Monumental. So the young band, 18 years old, have a song called Love Sick. Now, the reason that I could have mentioned them in a circle, also real great supporters of Tonic, and actually being 18, at the very start of their journey. And again, the connection there is that we come across them through links in terms of shows related to the specials and the Dirt Road Band. So that's a nice connection as well. So that would have been kind of an alternative. But also as well to mention that the amazing patrons, ambassadors, and supporters that we have that are artists. So Amy B. Sting from Oh My God, It's a Church, Millie Manders from Millie Manders and Shut Up, the supporters we have, such as well, also Andy Bell from Ride, another fantastic ambassador. Ride being great supporters of us, being really key. James Walsh from Star Sailor, great supporter. James Atkin from EMF, great supporter. We've had support fundraisers over the years from Liam Crombie of We Are the Ocean previously, and is now solo artist. Better Joy, another young artist that's been a great supporter of ours. I'm sure I'm going to forget some others as well. Lightning Seeds are worth mentioning as there as well. We've been on tour with them, and that's the powerful thing. So it's a 5 song circle, but this really could have been a lot bigger circle. It's a bit like a family tree, and musicians I know I mention musicians a lot, and you know, there's music fans, there's people working in the music industry, but musicians, you know, we need to look after our music communities. We look after musicians, our music industry, our music fans. Musicians in particular have given so much culturally to the world. I mean, that's the really key point. Music links very much with emotion and culture, and therefore identity. Um, you know, you just see how important music is, and you know, if you think about, I don't, you know, being a music fan, I tend to, if I think about a country, I think about the artists that come from there. But I think if we're talking about the UK, you know, the amazing artists that have come through, so Beatles, Stones, The Who, The Kinks, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Queen, you know, Adele, for example, really, really important. Kate Bush, Dave, Stormzy, the list could go on. The list could go on. Bowie, I'll probably David Bowie, another one. How important is that in terms of British culture? And you think about British metal and rock as well. So Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Bring Me the Horizon, Sleep Token, you know, they're there now. Um, phenomenal, phenomenal. And but unfortunately, the arts always come last in these types of thinking. So we need to culturally, you know, we need to make sure we support our music communities, because you know, we're losing them. We're losing them in terms of physical spaces. That's the thing. Venues are closing down, record shops are closing down. Where do people go? It's harder to get tickets for shows, not just in terms of cost, but in terms of these really long queues. Hopefully, the elimination of these bots, or you know, the secondhand sellers can't sell over. Hopefully, that's going to help address that. Um, But, you know, it's hard. It's not like you can go to HMV now and buy a gig ticket anymore, or Virgin Megastore. So there is a need. There is a need to support our music communities, because we're unique people. People who love music are unique. There is, you know, we wear our love on a t-shirt. You know, we walk around with band. I walk around with a band t-shirt and a band hoodie. That's what that's my outfit. Yeah, okay, you're a football fan, you might wear a football t-shirt, but it's the same football t-shirt, because you're not going to change your team each time. So with music, there's something really special and unique and so fascinating about it. So yeah, I think that's the key. And it's amazing that, like I said, we lost Terry, massive loss. We really miss Terry, but it's amazing that the legacy continues with Horace. The legacy continues with the Libertines and the Dub Pistols, you know, Baby Shambles, the work of Adam, continues with young bands like Monumental, young artists like Better Joy. You know, so what an amazing community to be part of.
Incredible. No, thanks so much for that. And thank you so much for completing the full circle. So it's been an absolute honor, Geordie, to have you on the show. And I could have, we could keep on talking for hours, but I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Is there anything that any parting words of wisdom before we wrap things up?
Party words of wisdom is take a visit on our website, tonicmusic.co.uk. There is something there for everyone. Like I said, you never waste anyone's time, and always make sure you're buying physical music and buying merch as well from your artists, both, you know, the stadium headlining to your pub circuit playing, because trust me, some of the best gigs I've ever been to have been at that pub circuit level. You could have two, three people in there. So that's the thing. You know, that's how special music is.
Yeah, it really is. And that's why I do the show, and that's why you come on, and that's why you support musicians, and you support music fans, and you support and you do what you do. So thank you so much, Geordie, for being on the show. Thank you so
Pleasure. Thank you
much.
so much.